The newest Netflix limited series, Sirens, is a well-made cinematic commentary on the socioeconomic divide in the U.S., codependency between traumatized women, and the ease at which we vilify women as a society, coupled with a strong underlying theme of men blaming women for anything and everything. Just gonna say ahead of time, if you haven't watched the show yet and you don't want spoilers, go watch it right now. Otherwise, this video is definitely going to contain spoilers. So, I'm also reading off a script. Sorry if that bothers you. I wrote it. Okay. So, let's start with the class divide first. It's evident within the first 5 minutes of the first episode that Devin and Simone live very different lives, despite growing up in the same house. Devin, being the older of the two, still lives at home in Buffalo, New York with their dad, who has recently been diagnosed with early onset dementia. Meanwhile, Simone, the younger sister, has moved out to what is presumed to be the very wealthy North Shore of Long Island, New York, to be a live-in assistant to Michaela Kell, the second wife to Peter Kell, the founder of some huge hedge fund. We immediately see the difference that class can create between two formerly similar people when Devin shows up unannounced at the Cliff House. Devin notices that Simone has gotten her tattoos removed, including a meaningful sister tattoo, because they were trashy. It's also worth noting that these two sisters have a very close bond, going as far as to have an SOS saying between the two of them. Not all sisters have a bond that close, so this is a pretty heavy thing to do. Simone has also gotten a nose job, likely based on Michaela's recommendation, and a desperate urge to fit the rich person mold. Devin points out what we as an audience are all thinking by saying that people die under general anesthesia, to which Michaela seems to have no reaction. This goes to show that when you have money and choose to present high class, you are expected to fit a certain kind of mold and look, no matter the cost, monetarily or otherwise. We see this with Devin being very noticeably out of place when wearing her street clothes in the first episode versus blending in a self-described Easter egg outfit so well that Missy, one of the staff members, doesn't even recognize her in the second. This idea is even furthered by Simone wanting to keep her low-class past a secret from her much older, rich boyfriend, Ethan. We can see that while being high-class may look to be very unachievable, it doesn't really take much in the right situation if you're willing to put on a good enough front, hiding your true self. Moving forward, the main dispute that this series rides on is the fact that Devin wants Simone to come back and help care for their father. This overarching argument culminates in the second episode with Simone accusing Devin of wanting to leave their family home too, to which Devin says, "I did leave. I was the original leaver. I just came back because I'm such a good sister," which was a beautiful performance from Megan Faye. And also, I gotta say, little side note, all of the acting in this show, especially from the lead women, was very, very strong. Strong emotional drive. I connected with it. The two girls had a very rough childhood, with their mother committing suicide and attempting to take Simone with her, after which their alcoholic dad, badly affected by his wife's death and clinically depressed, neglected Simone so badly that she ended up in foster care, and Devin chose to drop out of college to regain custody of her sister. Both girls hold a lot of resentment for this time, but Simone more so, which is highlighted by her wanting to leave her whole old life behind and pretend to be a high-class Yale girl from upstate New York. And although Simone really did get into Yale and was planning on becoming an attorney, despite her claim that she left because she hated it and it wasn't for her, I theorize that the deeper reason she dropped out may have had something to do with her trauma and wanting to be taken care of. And this isn't to take away from Simone's character. She did get off her meds herself, as she talks about in, I think, episode 4, and very well may have been doing well at that point. It's just a theory. It's probably scary to attend college alone after having Devin's help for a few years. It might have taken her back mentally to when she was in the foster system, or even worse, to when she was neglected by her father. So when, shortly after dropping out, Simone meets Michaela for her interview, it's the perfect storm for a codependency to form. Say what you will about Michaela, and I will in a minute, but at the core of her personality, she is very caring. She has a tendency to want to take creatures under her wing, which is why Devin's plan to integrate into the believed-to-be cult works so well. So of course, when Michaela hears about how Simone lost her mother at a young age, she immediately has an urge to become a mother figure to Simone. This idea is even furthered by Michaela's inability to have children, which is a deeply upsetting topic for her. Devin reveals to Morgan, the boat guy, in the first episode that Simone gets swept up in other people and loses herself because she is, quote, a traumatized little girl who's always trying to outrun her past. When you have watched the whole series through, it becomes clear that although what Devin believes she is witnessing is Simone's indoctrination into a cult, she's actually just witnessing Simone being swept up into a codependency due to a longing for understanding and care from a mother-like figure. According to Merriam-Webster, codependency is defined as a psychological condition or relationship in which a person manifesting low self-esteem and a strong desire for approval has an unhealthy attachment to another, often controlling or manipulative person. We can see all of these aspects playing out between Michaela and Simone within just the first 2 episodes. Simone cares so much when Michaela thinks about her secretly dating Ethan that she has a panic attack in the butler's pantry, while 3 or 4 different people search for her. In this moment, although we as an audience have been made to dislike Simone so far, she becomes deeply humanized, and we can see just how much pressure is upon her shoulders when we know that she can't disappear for even an hour without people freaking out. Another aspect of the codependency is Michaela's incessant need to know everything about Simone, becoming visibly uncomfortable when she realizes that she's been misled in some minor, generally irrelevant way. There is also, of course, the sharing of the gum, the sleeping together in the same bed. Simone's asking Michaela, "Are you mad at me?" To which Michaela says no, but then shows through her next sentence that she is indeed mad at her. And Michaela immediately tracking Simone down with Find My iPhone, and then with the house speaker system the minute she can't find her. These odd behaviors are all means and ways of controlling Simone so that she has no space or time to herself. And Simone's strong physical reaction to even the possibility of Michaela being mad at her even furthers this notion. I won't deeply get into it, but I've been through a few codependencies myself, and I would recognize this behavior from a mile away. Oftentimes, the person in power in a codependency is seemingly all that matters, and upsetting them can become extremely scary, especially in a situation with a significant power imbalance dynamic, like in Simone's case, where Michaela literally holds a monetary weight above her head. Simone says in episode 5, "I actually live my life to not devastate you." Devin also in episode 5 says, "Well, yeah, that job was her whole personality." Both of these quotes furthers the idea that there is a codependency going on here. Upsetting Michaela may mean the end to Simone's new perfect life and a forceful return to her neglectful alcoholic father in Buffalo. And on Michaela's end, she may not even realize what she's doing because although she can be very condescending in tone, she doesn't have a lot of support from her husband, Peter, and suspects that he may be unfaithful. During this questioning, she leans on Simone for support, seeing her as a daughter figure, but also as a makeshift replacement husband of sorts. Even telling Peter in the second episode that she slept with Simone, like slept in Simone's bed, because in her words, "Well, I was upset and you were nowhere to be found." It can be easy to put the blame on Michaela for this codependency, but it truly was a perfect storm with blame on both ends. Simone wanting someone to care for her, and Michaela wanting to care for someone else whilst being respected because her husband doesn't respect her. Continuing on the topic of Michaela and Peter's relationship, the most interesting part of this series to me, and the main reason that I wanted to make a commentary video on it, is how easily we villainize women when we are in a lack of information. Women do it to other women. Devin did it to Michaela. Leaving the men scot-free and unblameable, of course. I watched this show once through, hating Michaela and waiting for the big reveal that she was a siren, hence the show's name, luring men to their deaths and secretly controlling everything with an underlying song and ethereal beauty. And while there is a theme of female control through seduction, which we see sharply illustrated by Devin's being trailed by all the men she's had sex with in episode 4, this, coupled with the purposeful misleading done in episode 4 that Jay has gone and drowned himself in the ocean, continues to push the idea that if Michaela doesn't have powers herself, maybe it's something about the island that makes women have seductive control over men, like sirens in old-time stories do. As an audience, we are not led to think that these men are controlling themselves and doing what they want. Because maybe they're drawn in by the possibility of sex of their own accord, not because some unforeseen hand of power is telling them to follow. Maybe it is their own choices that damn them, not the women who allure them. There is a major theme of men blaming women for their own choices to go along with this. In episode 4, we hear Simone talk about what happened with her mom, Andrea, and how a lot of it had to do with Bruce's neglect, the father's neglect. But when Bruce talks with Peter, he tells him, "She ruined me though, shipwrecked me, made me lose my girls." But he's the one who neglected the wife, which obviously the choice that she made was fully on herself. You can't blame someone else for that, but why is he blaming her now that she's gone? Episode 5. Another example is Ray blaming Devin for his choice to come to the island, saying, "That dark current was you. I almost made my wife a widow last night, nearly left my son fatherless because of you." No, and then Devin says to this, no, Ray, I didn't invite you to this island. You chose to be here. You chose to go swimming naked. Devin says it like it is. She tells him, no, you chose to come here. I didn't control you. That was your choice. No matter what you feel for me, you still chose to do that yourself. You can't blame me for that. In episode 4, Ethan, after falling off the cliff, tells Simone to show him your wings, saying that to Peter, which is a fun little reference to old-time sirens who had wings in stories, which I love that little reference. But at the end of episode 4, Ethan repeatedly refers to Simone as a monster simply because she rejected him. Like, he couldn't get what he wanted, so he turned all the blame on her. She rejected him, and then he immediately hated her. So it's another blaming a woman for all of my problems, right? Episode 5, Peter blames Michaela for his choice to become estranged from his children. And then Michaela says, "Oh my God, this again? You ruined your relationship with your children. You pursued me. You left Jocelyn. You let them demonize me." It's very interesting because earlier we were led to think that Michaela was this terrible person who, was estranging Peter from his kids. But at the end of the day, who's choosing to not speak to their children? It doesn't matter who's pushing you to do whatever. You choose what you do. And if you let go of the power of your own choices, you let go of everything. Like, you can't change anything because everything is someone else's fault. It is with this idea in mind that we realize that Michaela is not the true antagonist in Sirens, but it is instead Peter. Peter has been pulling the strings of this operation the entire time, and he is painted to be a kind guy comparatively to Michaela. He actually thanks his staff and seemingly cares about their lives, whereas Michaela doesn't. So we as an audience are led to like him and see Michaela as an evil bitch. Now, Michaela is not the kindest, but maybe there are factors that led to her becoming like this. We don't get to see everything. This is a limited series after all. But the parts of the Kells' lives that we do see really emphasize Peter's highs and Michaela's lows, causing us to have a negative perception of her and a positive perception of him. This is what makes it so easy to see her as a villain in the series. And I have to say, I watched the show through twice, and the first time, I was fully convinced that she was the villain. Remember what we talked about earlier with people being expected to fit the high-class mold? This requirement tends to affect women more than men, at least in this series. And maybe that is simply what Michaela's personality is. An amalgamation of her attempts to fit in and be respected by the staff and the high-class people around her after the first wife, Jocelyn, who was very beloved, was out of the house. She may have also sensed that Peter was beginning to pull away from her, causing her to become more agitated and scared of losing her position in life. In episode 4, Michaela says to Simone, talking about Peter, "My whole life hinges on his approval." She asks, does this look fun, being a Mrs. somebody? She essentially tells Simone that her biggest regret in her life was leaving her career behind because Peter wanted to care for her. It was fun at first, but then she became aware of the fact that she worked for him. At the end of the day, Peter is the one who left his first wife, whatever the reason was, and Michaela has nothing to do with that decision. But Michaela is blamed and called a murderer throughout the town. So as it is with women, we are easily vilified. Once we see the truth of the situation and Peter makes a move on Simone, the events begin to untangle from there. We see that Michaela's suspicions of Peter weren't unfounded, and he really isn't a faithful man. Of course he isn't. He cheated on his first wife with Michaela. Who knows how long he's been planning on finding yet another younger wife. The series comes to an unsatisfying end with Simone taking Michaela's place, leaving us wondering, why did she abandon her so-called instant bestie? And is money really so powerful that someone would drop all of their old values to live out a fantasy? I guess it isn't really that far-fetched with Simone's willingness to leave her family, mainly Devin, behind for the original fantasy that was working for Michaela. Of course she'd go further, right? There's also a foreshadowing to Simone's choice to get with Peter when Jay references how Simone got with a married guy years before and ruined his life, although we know the truth is that it takes two to tango and a married guy shouldn't be doing that in the first place. The last episode ends with Devin apologizing to Michaela on the ferry, leaving the island. Michaela says, "People will do anything for you when you're Mrs. Cal. You just tell them what the rules are. It took him 13 years to decide that I was a monster." This leaves us with an understanding that the force that keeps people on the island, keeps them around, is not feminine mystique or anything of a siren nature or magical by any means. It is money and the prospect of having it. Thanks for watching. If you haven't watched the show, it's really good. You should check it out. My name's Kate.